When I first started cycling or training for cycling, well before I started coaching, I used to commute to work, and I'd commuted to work as a runner. So, I mean, I was fairly fit. But what I found was that the 1 hour each way was too much for me. And all that happened was I was just like struggling to do any meaningful training. I mean, obviously I could do it, I could get there and back, but I wasn't getting any faster, I wasn't improving. At that time, I was living in Edinburgh, and then I moved to Dunfermline, and it was much closer. I could do it in total 20-25 minutes, which doesn't seem like enough to get fit, but I was able to work that little bit harder, and as a consequence, I performed a lot better. I improved really quickly by doing less. So the subject of this video is less is often more, or less is often better. I didn't lose any endurance fitness. In fact, my endurance improved because I was going at a lower proportion of my maximum in the longer rides. So if you want to get faster, improve your average speed, even at longer events, even at multi-day events, think carefully about whether you might be doing too much training or trying to build volume or train harder, when in fact it might be better to train a bit less and focus on getting some better quality training sessions. Of course, we're not cyclists just to train. We actually like riding our bikes, so doing the longer rides, there's actually intrinsic value in going for long bike rides. So obviously we don't want to lose that. But actually, to get fitter, it might be better to limit the longer rides to when you want to actually get out and enjoy yourself, or when you want to do a super long training ride where you're pushing the limits of your endurance. Because these extra long rides take a long time to recover from. If you're riding for 10 hours or 12 hours or 16 hours or several days, then it takes a long time to recover from that, and therefore you're not able to do the higher intensity training which pushes up your speed. And just plodding along for 6 hours or 7 hours when you could go a little bit harder for 3 or 4 hours it can be counterproductive. Obviously it's not black and white, but it might be a good idea to think about whether it's better to do something a little bit shorter so that you can recover a little bit quicker and do more faster training and improve that average speed in that way, rather than just trying to go out for a long time and probably not really improve very much. We need to bear in mind the rule of specificity. So specificity means that you get better at specifically what you're doing. Say you want to ride a 200 kilometre event, or you want to ride 300 kilometres a day in a bikepacking event, then you need to be fairly confident that you can ride 300 kilometres in one day, or you need to improve your endurance into the point where you're comfortable that you can ride the 200 kilometres. But if you're struggling to do the 200 or the 300 kilometres within a time limit, then you obviously need to get faster. And the best way to get faster is to ride faster. If you look at this speed duration or the power duration curve for a long duration like I've set up here, then you can see that once you get to a certain duration, maybe 3 or 4 hours, the average speed doesn't increase very much. So if you're struggling to do 15 kilometres an hour or 20 kilometres an hour for more than 4 or 5 hours, then try doing 3 hours and see how fast you can do that. And then try and do 3.5 hours, so that you're actually extending the duration that you can ride at a certain speed. And of course, doing interval training sessions on top of that will improve your FTP and your average speed in that way. So it's like a lot of recent videos I've talked about, approaching it from the end of trying to get faster for short durations, your 20 or 30 minute powers, and also trying to get faster for longer durations, like your 2 to 3 hour sort of powers. And then as they come up, you can extend that for longer. So once you can do 3 hours, try to do 4 hours, try to do 5 hours. After 4 or 5 hours, you've reached a fairly steady state. And the things that are making you tired aren't necessarily just because you're going too fast. They're more to do with the fact that other things are getting tired. You're maybe not eating enough and things like that. So you have to keep doing maybe one long ride a month or something like that, because of the specificity rule and the other rule that's known as reversibility. So reversibility means that if you don't do it, you don't maintain it. If you use it or lose it is a good way to remember it. Maybe one longer ride a month is enough, or one long ride every 6 weeks can be enough to keep that sort of endurance fitness. And the weekly routine is such that you can recover between harder training sessions. So you might want 2 or 3 hard sessions a week. 3 a week would be 2 faster sessions and 1 longer session. 2 a week, if you're getting old like me, 2 a week might be enough for you, and what might be 1 interval session and 1 either long session or a long medium intensity type session, where you're going a bit faster than your long distance pace, but you're going for a duration that's quite stressful but not so stressful that you can't do another session during the week. And then once you've got these training sessions in place, then you add in the stuff around it, the secondary sort of stuff. to build up your aerobic efficiency, because basically the more endurance riding you're doing without compromising these harder sessions, the better your aerobic fitness. But the important factor is that you're not compromising the most important sessions. Like when I started out cycling, commuting an hour each way to work, well, that was too much. I was doing too much low intensity training and it was making me tired. I just wasn't fit enough to do it. So when I went to shorter training sessions, I was still getting that aerobic impact, but I was able to do the higher intensity training that made the big difference to my fitness. Training is a combination of duration and intensity, and if you're doing too low an intensity for a short duration, like zone 1 for 1 hour, is not going to give you very much of a stimulus unless you're just starting out in cycling. Whereas zone 2 for 30 minutes or 40 minutes is a reasonable stimulus, and if you're doing that twice a day, that's an hour or an hour and a half a day, and that can make a huge difference to your fitness. So in principle, have a think about whether you might be doing too much and compromising the training that you are doing by just getting tired rather than getting fitter. What we're trying to do is do perfect training, not necessarily hard training. So you're focusing on getting fitter and faster specifically for your event. Hopefully all that makes sense, and I'll see you in the next video.